Alright, welcome back to the tutorials. So, we're nearing the end of this set of tutorials here, right? And the last thing that we really want to work on is being able to move items from our inventory to all three of our pages of our inventory chest. Right now, we can actually move items from the inventory to the first page. See? But when we get to page 2 and we've got 2 empty slots here and we try to move an item, it doesn't work. Well, that's because we only hard-coded it to work with page 1. So if I delete this item here and then hit move, there it goes, back to page 1. So we've got to fix that, all right? But the first step at least for us, where we want to do this, is we've got to open up our inventory move code, right? Oh no, I'm sorry. We've got to open up our, we'll get to the inventory move, but the first thing we do is we've got to go to our chest inventory check for open slot. Now, again, this so far works for just page 1. We could go in here, right? And we could start hard coding all of this again, but we're going to go a different route actually. I'm going to toggle disable this, and then I'm going to add something new. Let's go to the plus sign up here, and let's add repeat. Now this repeat event is a loop, and I'm assuming that if you're walking through these tutorials with me, you might not be as familiar with programming concepts, okay? A loop is pretty much exactly what it sounds like, right? Picture a loop as like a circle. A loop allows you to continually execute specific lines of code for as long as you need them to. Now, it sounds great, right? It sounds nice and easy, very useful. But you recall anytime we create a new external event, right? I remind us that we need two important things. We need a specific way in, and we need a specific way out, so that we don't always constantly need to be checking and running the code in between. Well, it's no different with a loop, okay? Except the loop is a little more, well, tedious, and you've got to be a little bit more careful with a loop, because if you don't have a way out, again, it will just continually eat up the user's resources and your game's resources by just constantly going around and around and around executing the code. Now, I'll briefly go over something else here. We've got repeat, which is one kind of a loop, and we've also got while, which is another kind of loop. So when would you use a repeat loop here versus a while loop? The repeat loop allows you to input a specific number of times you want to run that code. So you could put a number in, right? You can even put an expression in, right? Or a variable. You could say, I want this to repeat. Global variable, let's see, I don't know, imanager.current, let's see, what's a number variable that we have here, or value? Imanager current page times, right? So let's just say, for example, this is kind of a ridiculous example, but let's say that current page is like, holds 3 times, 3 things, a value of 3. And you want this code that's in this loop, and the sub condition that's attached with it, if necessary, you want that to do to repeat current page times. You can do that. So a repeat here, repeat event in GDevelop is good for when you know how many times you want to run that code and then you're done with it. It won't run any more than that. But let's say you don't know how many times you need to run the code. Let's say you just need to run the code until some sort of condition is met, right? Like, let's pretend like you're playing hide and seek with like 5 kids, right? And you want to keep repeating a check for whether or not you found Tommy. Now, you could try to pretend like, all right, let's say there's 5 kids, one of them is Tommy. I'll just check 5 times, right? I could use a repeat for that. Yeah, but with this, let's say that the kids, once you find one and it's it's Jill instead. Let's say Jill goes back out to hide. So the truth is, you could keep finding all those kids multiple times before you actually find Tommy, right? So you might say, while I still haven't found Tommy, keep doing a search, right? Keep doing a search. While I haven't found Tommy, here's the repeat. Keep doing a search, right, until you find him. Well, again, you don't know how many times you're going to keep finding Jill and Bill and whoever else is available. So you would use a while you still haven't found Tommy. Keep searching. Now, if you read through the documentation wiki for GDevelop and you look up these loops, right, it says you should be careful, basically, about using a while loop. And I do agree with that, because you may think, all right, I'm going to set a condition for the user so that when the user, again, finds Tommy, it will break out of the loop. Okay, but the user may not find Tommy for a really long time, and all that time you're just wasting resources the whole time, okay? So while loops should be used sparingly, because not only can you sometimes not actually meet the condition at all, in which case you're just looping and looping and looping, but they can also be really intensive in terms of the resources. So use them sparingly. If you can use just a repeat with a hard way out, again, a repeat has a hard way out. You've got a set. Just use the repeat. So we're going to delete this, and we're going to stick with the repeat here. All right. So how are we going to do this? Okay. What line of code do we want to repeat, and how long do we want to repeat it? Okay, well, let's think about what we need to actually look for. We need 2 pieces of information, really, to check here for an open slot for our chest. We need the current page, right? And we need the slot number. So the current page is basically going to stay the same because it's just being provided by the user. When you click the right and left arrows, it changes the page number, or the current page, of our chest inventory. So we could do something like this. We could say, let's check this condition. And I'm going to add a sub condition here, actually. And I'm going to say, we want to check to see if something is filled, right? Chest inventory. And let's start at the bottom here. We want to see if it's equal to 0, right? If it's equal to 0, we want to take that value and we want to put it back into chest open slot, right? This is what we did down here. We said if it's 0, then make 5 equal to chest open slot. But we want our repeat to do the work for us. So let's modify this a little bit. And let's start adding expressions here. Let's do global variable string, okay, imanager.currentPage, and our expression. This is what we were doing the previous tutorial, right? So now what it does is it says chest inventory dot whatever current page the user's on. Okay. But we still need to get this value here to change. Now, you might recall down here, you can see it even. We went backwards. We went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 because we want the topmost open slot. And we're going to do that here as well. But how do we change this? Well, we're going to have to use a variable. So I'm going to actually, just because I think it's easier to do, I'm going to actually add a global variable here. I'm going to go to iManager, and this is going to be our go-to variable here. In iManager, I'm going to call this one temp slot and hit apply. Now open chest should stay 0, right? Because if it comes back 0, then it means there's no open slot. But the question is, what do we set our new variable to? We normally set our variables equal to 0 or 1, maybe, if we're doing a test. But since we want to move backward, right, from 5 to 1, we want to start off by making this equal to 5. Now we can do this. We can add another expression here. We can say, forget 0.5. Let's do global variable string iManager.temp slot. So if the current page and the temp slot is equal to 0, what do? Well, we've got to change our value of chest open slot. The open slot is going to be equal to what? Our current value of temp slot. And it's okay if your eyes are starting to glaze over. It's all right. We're going to walk through it so you can understand how to read your loop and figure out if you're going to get caught in something. All right, so we still haven't set how many times we want this to be repeated. Well, we've got 5 slots. Let's repeat it 5 times. Great, so we're going to repeat this code 5 times. Everything's wonderful. Let's start reading our code and seeing what happens. So great, temp slot is equal to 5. If chest inventory.current page, which is 1, dot temp slot, which equals 5, equals 0, then go ahead and make chest open slot equal to 0. Great. Let's come back around now and let's loop this again. This is the 4th time we're going to loop it, and we're going to say if chest inventory dot page 1 dot current page equals 1 dot temp slot, which is still what? 5. Do you see the problem? What we're going to do is run this same bit of code 5 times and end up with the same result. Actually, it's going to be different now because if we actually put the item in, well, no, it's always going to be 0, excuse me. It's always going to run this specific code. Basically, you're not actually checking all of your slots. We need to change the value of temp slot in order to check our different inventory slot. So let's add another subcondition here. Move this over though, right? Order's really important here. Underneath, there we go. After this is checked, we need to now decrement temp slot. So we can now say subtract 1, decrement it 1. Now watch what happens. So temp slot is 5. If 1.5 equals 0, do this. If not, it's going to come down here anyway, and it's going to say, okay, -1 to temp slot. Now we come back in for the fourth time, and it says if chest inventory.1.4 is filled, do this, right? Whether or not it is or isn't, come down, decrement it one more time. You see how that we've entered into the loop, and the loop is going to do all of the work for us here? All right. So we can delete this. And now let's do a quick preview, quick test. All right, let's try to move this item over. Great, look at that. Wonderful. Let's try to move this over. Uh-oh. So what went wrong? All right, let's think this through for a second, right? Always an opportunity to think. We know our code works for this page here, right? I can even delete an item, I bet. And there it goes. Can we move an item over? Yeah, we can still move an item over too. It just doesn't work for here. So what pieces of code deal with our move? Inventory move, right? Let's check that. Okay, that's fine. We've entered, we exit. Oh, you see the problem? We've hard-coded 1 here. So it's always going to only check for 1. So let's go ahead and put our expression in. imanager.current page. Let's copy this. I think we're going to need it in multiple places. Do we have it here? Yep, we do. Okay, let's paste it in. That's all fine. What about in here? Yep. Okay, the rest of this looks fine. All right, let's run our preview again. Let's see if we can start moving some items over. All right, let's move the bowel obstructor over. It should go in this open slot. It does. Let's move the health potion over. All right. Okay, here's the big test. Look at that. Very, very cool.